The 9th day in the brig was the day I stopped counting, not because I gave up, because there was nothing left to count toward. The appeal had gone in on day 2. The station's legal office had acknowledged receipt on day 3. After that, silence. The particular silence of a bureaucracy that has decided you are easier to forget than to process. Dr. Marev Solun had signed the administrative hold himself. Conduct unbecoming, misappropriation of ward resources, failure to maintain containment logs, all of it paper-thin, all of it enough. The cell was a converted storage bay on sublevel 3. A cot, a drain in the floor, a light strip on a 12-hour cycle. The guards rotated every 6 hours and none of them would meet my eyes. Told me they knew the charge was hollow and had decided that was someone else's problem. I thought about Kale a lot, those 9 days. He had come to me as a cub the size of a large dog, all spotted flanks and outsized paws and amber eyes that were already older than his body, suggested. Veth-Shaari cubs look like they are perpetually deciding whether you are worth eating. Kale decided I was not worth eating on the 2nd afternoon. When I sat down on the floor of the ward, instead of standing at the gate the way the intake sheet said I should, I did not try to approach him, I just sat. He circled for 20 minutes, then walked over and pushed his nose into my coat pocket, the left one, where I kept the dried protein strips I was technically supposed to distribute at feeding intervals, not hand carry. He found 3 of them. He ate them with considerable dignity, then sat down beside my knee and did not move for 4 hours. That was 6 years ago. He was confiscated when the ward budget was cut, relocated to a transit circuit in the outer sectors. Solun's predecessor had decided the station didn't need a beastkeeper on the payroll. When a shared circuit contract cost less, I signed the transfer paperwork. I had no authority to refuse it. I stood at the loading bay and watched the containment crate go through the outer lock and told myself the circuit handlers were competent, which they probably were. I missed him the way you miss something you can't explain to anyone who asks. On day 9, around the 4th hour of the light cycle, guard Preveth, the older one, the quiet one who slid my meal through the slot without making a show of it, stopped outside my cell and stood very still. I was lying on the cot facing the wall. I heard him stop. I heard him not move for a long time. "Keeper Voss," he said. "I'm not a keeper anymore," I said, administratively speaking. "There is something in the outer corridor." I sat up. The cell block's pressure door was 60 meters down the hall. I could hear it from where I sat, a low, rhythmic sound, somewhere between a purr and the bass note of a very large engine idling. I had not heard that sound in 6 years, but I knew it the way you know your own name. I stood up and walked to the cell door. Preveth was backed against the opposite wall. 2 other guards were at the far end of the block, and neither of them was moving toward the pressure door. The light strip above it was amber. Secondary alert, not full lockdown. Whatever was out there had not triggered the station's threat sensors, which meant it was not behaving aggressively. It was simply present in a corridor where it was not supposed to be. The pressure door groaned. Not the sound of a mechanism failing, the sound of something leaning against it with patient, enormous weight. "You should open it," I said to Preveth, "Keeper." "If it wanted through, the door would already be gone," I said. "It's waiting." Preveth looked at me. He looked at the door. He crossed to the manual release and pulled it. Kale walked in. He was not the size of a large dog anymore. He was the size of a draft animal, broad through the chest, his head clearing the corridor lights, obsidian-banded fur that had gone from spotted to full striped across his shoulders with the years. His paws on the deck made no sound at all. Amber eyes, exactly as I remembered them. He moved down the corridor at a deliberate walk, ignoring the guards entirely, ignoring the cell doors on either side, and stopped in front of mine. He pushed his nose into the gap at the seam where the cell door met the frame, sighed. Exactly where my coat pocket would have been. I sat down on the floor. He exhaled a long, slow sound, and lay down on the other side of the door, all of him. 230 kilograms of Veth-Shaari apex predator, arranged on the deck of sublevel 3 like he was settling in for a nap. His tail crossed the corridor and touched the far wall. Guard Preveth had not moved since the door opened. The other 2 had not moved either. None of them reached for their comm units. Some calculations happen without words. "Hey," I said to Kale through the door. One ear tilted toward me. You walked a long way, I said. The low, purring engine sound again. His eyes had closed. I do not know exactly how long we sat like that. Long enough that my legs went stiff. Long enough that Preveth, very quietly, went to a chair and sat down in it, without explaining to anyone why he had done so. The comm on the block wall crackled at some point. Preveth answered it in a low voice. I heard Solin's name. I heard containment assessment. I heard Preveth say, the animal is not displaying aggressive behavior at this time. And then a long pause. And then Preveth say, I would not recommend that approach, sir. And then he ended the connection. He looked at me. The director is coming down, he said. Of course he is, I said. I heard Solun before I saw him, the sound of a man who had decided he was going to be in charge of a situation, by arriving at it with authority. He came through the pressure door with 4 security officers behind him, and stopped when he saw Kale. Kale did not open his eyes. Kale did not move. He simply was. The full length and fastened him across the corridor, his head a meter from my cell door, his breathing slow and even. Solon stood at the far end of the block and looked at that, and I watched him recalculate. Voss, he said, call it off. He's not a weapon, I said. He came here on his own. I'm ordering you. You're ordering a woman in a cell, I said. Charge that won't survive a proper review. We've both known that since day 3. Solon's jaw moved. Behind him, his 4 security officers had arranged themselves in a way that suggested they were very interested in the wall. KL opened his eyes. He did not stand. He did not snarl. He turned his head and looked at Marev Solun with the full weight of 6 years of outer circuit survival and 230 kilograms of evolved predator attention, and the amber of his eyes in the cell block light was the color of something very old. Deciding something very simple, Solon stepped back, 1 step involuntary. Easy, I said quietly. Kale's head turned back toward me. Easy, I said again. He put his chin on his paws. The legal review that followed took 4 hours. The station's senior counsel arrived. I was told later she had been trying to reach Solon's office for 6 days, and the conduct charges were found to have no supporting documentation that hadn't been generated by Solon's own administrative office. The misappropriation charge referred to protein supplement inventory that had been written off as spoilage 2 budget cycles prior. The containment log failures were dated to a period before I had been assigned keeper responsibility for that ward. All of it paper thin. All of it gone. I walked out of the cell block in the same clothes I had arrived in, with Kale falling into step on my left side, his shoulder at my ear, his stride calibrated without discussion to something I could match. We went up 2 levels and through the main transit corridor and out onto the station's common arena floor, where Solon had apparently planned to process my transfer to an outer reach holding facility in front of the administrative staff. The staff was there, maybe 60 people. They watched Kale and me walk across the floor, and not one of them watched Solon, who was standing at the far end, trying to look like he had intended all of this. I did not look at him either. I looked at the far corridor, the one that led to the old beast ward. And I thought about a cub, the size of a large dog, pushing his nose into my coat pocket on the 2nd afternoon, eating 3 protein strips with considerable dignity and sitting down beside my knee, like it was a decision he had made carefully and not be revisiting. Come on, I said. Kale walked beside me and the Arisana floor was very quiet and Director Marev Solun stood in it alone.